Hey guys, in this video I'm gonna go over my league starter for 3.17 Archnemesis League, which is going to be a Spectral Helix Berserker, also using Rage Vortex for some extra clear and utility. Spectral Helix is a very strong skill, but it feels kinda bad to play in my opinion. It's slow, it's kinda clunky, especially when using the fledgling, so projectiles can't hit nearby targets. Adding Rage Vortex makes the build feel a little more responsive and the gameplay a bit more enjoyable. And makes it feel like you're not just always sitting around waiting for your Helix to reach your target. The Vortex doesn't have insane damage or anything, but it can be enough to clear white packs, especially in situations where Helix really struggles, like in indoor maps such as Toxic Sewers or Bone Crypt. But the vast majority of your damage and clear is still gonna come from Helix. The extra clear from Rage Vortex is a nice bonus, but the main purpose of Rage Vortex is to provide utility in the form of Onslaught on Hit, Culling Strike, Combustion or Maim, as well as Fortify. Which, since Helix is not a melee skill, you don't normally have access to Fortify unless you're playing a champion. The fortification stacks can be hard to maintain during boss fights, but it's pretty reliable in maps. And with 3.17 they're going to make it easier to sustain them by making it so the fortification stacks ignore monster damage reduction. Now the way I have been testing the build is elemental based using Oni-Goroshi, but after playing around a bit in PoB it seems like a fizz based version is going to be very good as well, and might be more suitable for league start. But with so many new changes coming in this patch, like the new Eldritch item implicits and so many new endgame uniques, it's really hard to say what version is gonna be better. So I have decided to include both of the POBs in the description. I'll also put a day 1 version of the build since this is a league start video, and that version is gonna be without Oni-Goroshi using Terminus Est instead, and that's gonna work as a day 1 setup for either version that you wanna play. For me personally, I'm not sure which version I'll end up going, but either way I don't want to farm Oni-Goroshi on league start. I'd rather just farm Chaos and buy it later since the build functions very well without it, and I suspect the same goes for a lot of you guys. But to be clear, all my late game in-game testing has been with the Oni-Goroshi version. So that's the version you're seeing in the gameplay footage. Either way, I'm probably gonna make some follow-up videos for the build after league launch, maybe some of the new boss kills or so feel free to subscribe if you're interested in something like that. But yeah, if you just want the POBs and peace out, they're gonna be in the description. I'm gonna go ahead and open them up and go into a little bit more detail, go over some of the differences between the versions, and then at the end of the video I'm gonna put my fight of the Feared Invitation, which was kinda rough. I don't have a lot of practice for that fight. Actually, this was the first time I did it in Scourge League, and I think the second time ever maybe. I usually play mapping focused characters, but with so much new bossing content coming up in 3.17, I wanted to make something that can handle bosses, and this build has at least done all the current bosses in the game, including Maven, Uber Elder, and all the invitations. So hopefully it will be able to handle the new bosses as well. Okay, so this is the version of the build that you're looking at in the gameplay footage, just so you can get an idea of the numbers that you're seeing. About 12 million full DPS with 2 helixes and pretty low EHP. So I've made some iterations to the build to try to cut down the costs a little bit and as well just improve the build overall. So I'm actually just gonna head over to that POB, but yeah. This is what's in the video of the Feared and Uber Elder and things like that. So, yeah. In this sort of updated version for 3.17, I'm using Soul Tether instead of Rislatha's Coil and Glorious Vanity to make it cheaper, and I think it might just be more effective in the end either way, because those are pretty expensive at league start, and you can see the damage is about the same and the EHP is a lot better. And yeah, I'm just gonna go over the gear a little bit. Oni-Goroshi, you probably know how it works. It basically gives a bunch of fizz as extra fire damage. and it gives a big degen debuff based on your level, fire damage over time. So that's a bit of a downside. You take a bunch of fire damage per second, but you gain a bunch of fist damage as extra fire. And it also scales some added fizz based on your level, and it has a lot of crit. And it's a one-handed weapon that takes up both your hand slots. And also using the fledgling, which gives us far shot, which as you can see is about 4 million DPS if you're at the ideal range, which is pretty easy to get. It travels, since it travels in a spiral, it reaches the far shot very easily. But the projectiles cannot collide with enemies at close range. So that's part of the reason why we're using the Rage Vortex a little bit. Just because Helix is kind of like a finicky skill. It's kind of annoying when enemies get too close. When you have the fledgling, it can't hit them, and it just travels pretty slow overall. So, but yeah, moving on. We have a Elder Chest here with crit chance on it. This is the only influenced item we have. Not using any double influence items or any Maven orbs or anything like that. So the gearing should be pretty simple, but I don't know, maybe it's gonna be hard to get an Elder Chest in the new expansion. I don't know, but I suspect it's gonna be pretty easy, but who knows. So yeah, you want the crit, and then you're just basically going for life. Maybe some resists, and you want to try to get spell suppression. We're gonna try to reach 100% spell suppression through the tree and the gear. But yeah, that basically goes for all the gear. Getting some accuracy on your gloves or your jewelry can be nice. And you want this little final bit of conversion on your gloves. I think that might be available as an Eldritch implicit mod later on. But I'm not sure. If not, you can use this craft or a temple mod to get the last 10%, because you get 50% from Avatar of Fire and 40% from the Fire Mastery. So that leaves 10% that you have to get somewhere else. And then just, yeah, life resist and spell suppression. I tried to just keep the gearing really simple here for this League Starter version, basically. The taming gives a bunch of fire damage or elemental damage, and a nice amount of resist as well. Soul Tether, that's how we get Overleech, which is really needed for the Oni-Goroshi version especially, but I have it on the Fizz version as well, because it just feels really nice. But yeah, since you have this big degen, having Overleech is really important, and you want to get this as soon as possible. This is basically the only required unique. Well, Oni-Goroshi too, of course, and the fledgling is really good to have. Which, by the way, this drops from a heist boss, and it's a guaranteed drop actually. So it might be a little expensive in the start, but it should get pretty cheap. The only thing that's going to be expensive here is the enchant. I think it cost me about 5x. So that one is gonna be pretty hard to get, but again, it's not needed. It doesn't actually impact the DPS on the sheet, at least. It just makes clear a bit nicer. I think it might make it a little bit more likely to hit twice or 3 times. But, yeah, you don't need it. You can get pretty much any other enchant that benefits you. And yeah, for the flasks, I got a Taste of Hate. Doesn't give a lot of damage, but a big amount of fizz mitigation and cold mitigation. And then a granite flask, quicksilver flask, and a diamond flask. You can use Bottled Faith if you can afford it, but it's only about a 10% damage increase, and it's gonna cost over 10x probably. Then I have a Watcher's Eye. You can just get a single mod with precision. I think it shouldn't be that expensive to try to get an extra determination mod as well, but yeah, who knows. Just focus on getting crit multi or attack damage for precision. And then I have a Third of Hope, which I don't know how common Third of Hope is gonna be, but it shouldn't be that rare, at least not when you're getting a couple of days into the league. It should be pretty easy to buy. But yeah, I have some different versions. Like in this level 90 version, I just decided to remove the Third of Hope because it's a little bit of an unknown of how expensive it's going to be. You can also use Intuitive Leap here to get Aspect of the Links and Acuity and Fervor. which yeah, that's a good idea. I have that on the Fizz version because the Thread of Hope really only benefits the elemental version, because at least over here, because there's a lot of good elemental nodes here. But yeah, I have some different trees. This is like when you're getting into maps at level 68, and then a leveling tree. You want to go for these nodes during leveling. Actually, I think I have like this on the other versions. Yeah, you want to get prod speed. It helps a lot with the clear speed of this build. Spectral Helix is just kind of painful to play without any prod speed, so you want to get these. You can get this one here as well, 15% more prod speed, and for bossing you can get 15% less prod speed, because the less prod speed you have, the more likely the projectile is to hit the bosses twice, but more projectile speed is crucial for clear speed. So yeah, I think in the endgame version I don't have either one of them, but you can specify one if you know you're going to focus on one specific form of content. And then for the skills, Spectral Helix, I have 2 Awakened Gems here, which is yeah, I don't know how expensive these are gonna be. The Fire Pen is pretty nice to have because it gives exposure, but again, I saw Eldritch mods that give exposure too, so maybe it's not gonna be very important. And yeah, it's just a little icing on the cake. I think the DPS is good without it as well. And then for Rage Vortex, we have all these sort of utility gems like Combustion, Onslaught, Fortifying, Culling. Yeah, the Rage just helps build back the Rage once, because you're spending Rage to cast it. So that's nice to have. And you're gonna replace Combustion with Maim on the Fizz version, but I'll go over that later. And then these are the auras. Herald of Ash is nice for clear speed. That's one benefit of the fire version, is Herald of Ash is actually pretty nice for clearing. And then we have Ancestral Protector. If you're on a 5 link here on the Rage Vortex, I would move the Culling Strike to the Protector, and then move Leap Slam into the unlinked 6th socket on Rage in your chest. And then I have Assassin's Mark. I have Hex Touch here in place of Mark on Hit, I think it's just gonna be called. They haven't updated the POB yet, so but I'll probably I'll add that later. And then Precision. I'm using an Unset Ring to make room for this. You can cut something else, I guess, if you don't have like the increased duration, maybe, if you don't have access to an Unset Ring, but I would try to get that. And then we have Chain Hook with faster attacks and Hydrosphere to build Rage. And then I have a little bit of a leveling setup here. You can use Splitting Steel until level 12, and then yeah. I'm gonna go into the other POB for the Fizz version. Let's see, yeah, Fizzberg. Yeah, this one. So gearing is pretty similar, I believe. The EHP is even better on this version. A little bit lower damage, but I think it's fine because yeah, you're gonna be able to scale it with. I just used the stock sort of a Fizz 2-hander here from POB. If you can get a really good axe, your DPS is gonna go up a bunch. And again, the gearing here is really simple. It's basically the same, just spell suppression and life and resists and all of that. Also using Soul Tether here, and as I said, Intuitive Leap instead of the Thread of Hope. And oh yeah, I have this Determination, yeah, Corrupted Implicit, because I think that should be pretty simple, pretty easy to get, because it's such a common belt. Getting one implicit it should be pretty easy. You might even be able to get a double Corrupted Soul Tether at some point. And then yeah, here I'm not using any of the Awakened Gems. So that's a lot of end game potential as well, but you don't need more damage than this, let's be honest. At least not early on. Maybe for like the aspirational end game content, which I haven't really explored, but I have cleared all the current bosses in the game, the end game bosses. So yeah, I'm using Maim here instead, and actually a 5th link instead of Culling Strike, because I have Culling Strike on the tree here, using Melee Fist. So yeah, the tree is gonna be probably the biggest difference here, along with some of the gems, of course. But yeah, most of the gems are just the same. Well, using Grace instead, double defensive auras, Grace, Determination, Defiance banner, just to build that EHP up. I think you could go for Pride instead of Grace, and your damage is gonna go up 9 mil, but I'm gonna prioritize defenses over damage generally. So yeah, the tree looks like this for this version. I guess I can just talk about the overall. Yeah, you just want life, these rage nodes. Here we're using 2-handed nodes instead of elemental nodes, and as well as these impale nodes instead of elemental nodes, and then of course axe nodes instead of sword nodes. Some spell suppression. We have this on both builds. These nodes are really nice. Long shot, it gives a far shot type of effect, and this gives a bunch of crit. And here, this is a placeholder for until they update the POB. There's gonna be a Mark Master that gives you frenzy charge on hit on marked enemies, and then this gives Culling Strike. If you get higher level, you might be able to get this instead, but I just figured this pathing is gonna be easier for a bit lower level. That's for like level of 100 probably. And yeah, here I'm using this Reservation Mastery, and on the other one I'm using Mana Reservation. On this one I'm using Aura Effect, just because it gives such a huge boost to defenses. And yeah, taking some accuracy nodes here. You're probably looking at trying to get some accuracy on the from your gear as well here. The only keystone I'm using is Iron Grip. It just gives a little bit of damage. I have some leveling trees here as well. I have that, I think, in all versions, if you want to take a look at that. But yeah, I think that's basically it. I guess we can take a quick look at the day one. So here I'm using Terminus Est. And the tree looks like this. This is gonna work as a day one starter for both versions of the build, so to say. 1 mil DPS. It's it's decent. Decent EHP. Belt of the Deceiver for Intimidate and reduced extra damage from crits. Great Old One's Tentacles are actually pretty nice. If the sort of explosion effect is kind of useless, but it does give a little bit of impale, which when you're low on passive nodes is nice. And yeah, I didn't really put too much thought into this gear here, but maybe you're not going to use an Astral Plate. This is with a 5 link, by the way, using Life Tap. Oh yeah, I should probably explain that choice. So on the Oni-Goroshi version, I'm not using Life Tap, which makes it a little bit hard to precast the helixes. But it's not as important on that build to preload them, because you don't have Her Blessing up anyway until the boss actually spawns. You could use the Writhing Jar for that, but I didn't want to bother with that. It seems like yeah, a lot of work for not a lot of gain. So using Life Tap on the Fizz version and using Inspiration on the Oni-Goroshi version As you can see, I don't have a ton of unreserved mana. You can preload a couple of ones just because it's nice. But yeah, those aren't gonna have her blessing up, or her embrace. Sorry, her blessing is from the other one, I think. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you have any questions about the build, feel free to just ask in the comments. And yeah, I'm gonna put that clip of the Feared right now at the end of the video. And yeah, I'll probably make some sort of update for this. If you're interested in watching that, feel free to subscribe to the channel. And yeah, see you in the next one.